Okay, so in this one, we're going to talk about the musical senses. And our musical senses or perception is affected by time, repetition, then we have hearing, voice, vision, and touch, and then we have rhythm. Now, let's talk a little bit about time and reps. Obviously, the more time that you spend away from the memorized part, the more you're going to have the tendency to forget. And perhaps you might hear something, and then maybe you'll say something, and then you'll try to play it on your guitar. But the thing is, because you said something in between, you listened to it, and then you said something, that sort of just broke the mirror. And then now you try to play on your guitar, you're probably going to forget what you just heard. Okay, so this happens a lot. Um, so the next thing is the reps, right? So when you add more reps to the weaker part, well, hey, that adds time into your memory bank. So you're adding more positive time into your bank. The next thing here is the vision, right? So problem with vision is that the vision intakes everything at the same time. Most of your attention is focused on what you see, okay? Because you're going to be flooded with so much information. Remember, we talked about this is your primary sense. We talked about how you want to read the tab, how you want to look at your fingers, how you want to see everything. Without vision, you're pretty much screwed. Without hearing or speech, you're not as screwed, right? It's going to be so let's think about that, right? Without the vision, man, it's going to be really hard to get around, right? Without hearing or speech, it's not as bad. I think if it was, well, hearing would definitely suck as a musician. But the thing is, it's really scary when you don't have sight. Like it's like, oh my god, like where am I gonna go? That's like the worst possible thing, right? But without hearing or speech, you're not as screwed. Like it's still bad, but you can still see where you're going. You can still drive. You can you can still see like your family and friends. So you can still do things. But without hearing or speech, well, you're not as screwed. Okay, it's still kind of bad, but it sucks that people have to lose senses and stuff. But the thing is, without touch, taste, or smell, yeah, it sucks. But there's nothing really compared to vision or hearing and speech. So your touch, your taste, and your smell are going to be pretty much, well, these two don't actually have any effect on your musical ability, as far as I'm concerned. And without touch, uh, well, touch actually does have a part to do with your musical senses here. Okay, but obviously, yeah, so that's the thing. Since most of your attention is focused on what you see, that means that hearing takes a back seat. Vision is the most important sense you have. Well, vision now takes a back seat. So that's why we have this sort of belief that like we can't develop this perfect pitch is because our hearing is not our primary sense. Like, um, I'll bet you that bats have perfect pitch. They can probably they know that pitch because they have really good hearing, right? Actually, I don't know if they hear. I think they use some sort of different ability. I don't know, but the point is like there's probably some animals that have really good hearing that they probably like can tell somewhat, maybe or maybe not. I mean, because I guess they have no alphabet, so they wouldn't have any idea what it was. I guess I'm getting a little bit off track here. But the point is, our hearing is not really our best sense, so we kind of we have this sort of a belief that we can't really develop our hearing skills. Like, well, we're not musically talented. Well, it's not true. It's just that you haven't developed your hearing ability that much. So your hearing takes a back seat, and you can only hear one moment at a time. Like you can't hear the whole thing at once. We've already talked about that. You could see all of this at the same time, but listening to this, you only hear one word at a time. And the only way that you can fix this, and that's why I like to read, by the way. The only way that you can fix this is to be able to remember larger portions of the music at a time. When we talked about sort of trying to visualize things in your mind, almost like replaying a recording, you got to visualize this in your mind. You close your eyes, and you can hear the music in your mind, so you can visualize the pieces of it, okay, and how the structure looks. So think of your hearing as a net, and it's made with bungee strings. And as you start to hear notes, the net starts to collect all the notes that you can remember. And it starts to stretch back, and it gets full, and your hearing net, you're hearing all these notes, and then pop, all of a sudden you can't remember what happened past a certain point. You need to be able to widen the stretch of your hearing net. You need to be able to listen to every single note that you hear, every single sound that you hear. You gotta listen to all that stuff and keep track of it. And you're gonna consciously hear every note. Just think about what notes, what you can hear right now that you didn't even know you could hear, like the bugs outside, right? Those little crickets and stuff. maybe the traffic, maybe like music down the street, right? You probably weren't noticing those things, but now that you're listening for it, you could see it, right? It's kind of like your peripheral vision. Like if you look around your peripheral vision, you can sort of start to notice, wait a minute, wow, like there's stuff that I'm seeing in the corner of my eye that you know, I wasn't really paying attention to because my focus was on this. So it's kind of like that. Yeah, so you need to consciously hear each note, and it's going to stick in your memory like a snapshot. And you'll be able to recall what you just heard. You have to track it. If you don't listen consciously, you're not going to remember what you just heard. You have to track the music with your ear as you hear it. Okay, so you're going to visualize the structure, imagine the sound of the notes, and replay what you heard in your mind. Visualize the structure, imagine the sound of the notes in your head, replay what you just heard in your mind. Okay, this is really important here. Next is your voice. So your voice is a powerful sense. It allows you to reproduce the music that you hear in your own mind without needing a separate instrument. It's going to be one of the easiest ways, the easiest instrument to translate what you hear in your head into actual sound. This is why we use our voice to practice ear training. All right? In order to practice the listening skills, you have to practice the vocalization skills, because that'll give you an inner ear. It would be very difficult to practice the ear training exercises without having a quick and easy method to translate what we're thinking in our heads, right? Like you're thinking something in your head, and you're like, okay, well I hear it in my head, but how am I gonna play that note? I can hear it in my head. How am I gonna play that note? I know what it sounds like. How am I gonna play it? I mean, do you know where that note is on your guitar? Probably not. Do you know where that note is on the piano? Probably not. Do you know where that note is anywhere else? Probably not. If you don't know the instrument super well, you don't know where that note is. So if you can hear it in your head, how are you going to translate that? You sing it. La, la, la. Well, you don't need an instrument. It would take you some time. So that first note that I sang, it took me a few tries to get that. Just those three notes right there. I didn't know instantly where it was, and that's not good. Like, it's just a waste of time. You're making mistakes now as you're practicing. Like, you saw when I sang it, la, la, la. I thought of the sound in my head, instantly sang it. This is how we translate from our head, our listening skills. And yes, you do need to learn how to sing. And I've taught several people how to develop their voices, so it's not going to be the most difficult thing. It is going to be somewhat of a challenge, but we have some techniques to do that. Anyway, so that's why we use our voice to practice ear training. So, yeah. Good. So what you hear in your imagination is never as clear as what you hear out loud, and that's why we have to sing this. So we can't do this silently, okay? You might be thinking, well, you know what? I can hear it in my head, right? So I don't have to sing it. I can do it silently. I can hear it already. But the thing is, what you hear in your imagination is not as clear as what you hear out loud. Can you hear this note in your imagination? La. Can you hear it in your imagination right now? Probably not as loud as when I do la. Now you can hear it really clearly. So that's why we use our voice, again, to practice our ear training exercises. And not our instrument. Sometimes we do with our instrument, but it's going to be mostly voice when we practice ear training. So, the next thing, the final thing, is the physical feeling involved with guitar playing. So the same way that you would feel a great golf swing, or how you could just feel the right motion to crack your bones. You just know instantly where to do it, right? You can just do it. You get it right on your first shot. Well, based on, how did you get it right? It's based on comparing the current physical feeling with how you remember it should feel like from all the other times you did it right. And let's try to read this again because it's pretty important. You get it right on your first shot based on comparing the current physical feeling with how you remember it should feel like from all the other times that you did it right. And this is how you'll be able to let go and just put your hands sort of on autopilot. This reflex that you have that'll allow you to build more speed, play cleaner, and find the right notes faster, smoothen the transitions, and allow your mind to focus more on the sound of what you're playing versus your technical skills, and what you're hearing in your head, what you're imagining in your head. And how you might be able to find that sound on your guitar. And you start thinking about that versus the technical, physical stuff, because that has already been put sort of on this reflex mode. All right, and that's going to basically wrap up the musical senses here. I guess we kind of need to talk a little bit about the rhythm things, but we already talked about the rhythm in the previous one. Rhythm is really powerful because, again, rhythm will help you to remember the music much better if you use the rhythm to your advantage. So if you didn't, get that about rhythm last time, check out the memory techniques over here. This is a really powerful sense that we just kind of ignore. The rhythm is the most attractive force in the universe. Rhythm. And that's why we like music. That's why we listen to music, because of rhythm. So this is the most powerful sense. In fact, you can even see here's rhythm like drawn out on little lines. You could see this is rhythm right here. Look, even that's rhythm. Look, it's rhythm. 1, 2, 3. It's evenly spaced out. These are rhythms. Look, time and seconds. That's a rhythm. Literally, time is rhythm. So rhythm is the most powerful attractive force, and it's going to be one of the most powerful musical senses. The most powerful musical memory technique that you could possibly use is your rhythm. And if you play things perfectly in time, it's going to sound really good. Even if you make a little mistake, it's still going to sound perfectly in time. Can you get away with being perfectly in time and playing slightly wrong notes, and but can you play it perfectly in time? You can do it. When you listen to the tracks, you'll notice that I've left a few mistakes in the music, in those little recordings that I have for you, because I played them perfectly in time. So the small mistake isn't really going to detract too much for that. Just want to sort of show you that it's definitely possible that even if you're making slight mistakes, if you're perfectly in time, it's gonna work. But if you're not in time, it's gonna sound so bad. Like, it's just gonna be like so bad. And you listen to some of those tracks, if you ever hear me getting out of time, it's gonna be like clashing against each other. Like, it's like, oh my god, it doesn't sound good because it's out of time. So the rhythm is the most critical musical sense. Kind of ranted about rhythm twice so far. They're just so powerful. That's going to wrap up these 3 pieces of how we memorize music really, really easily, and how we get really good quickly. Hope this was informative, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.